So in that auction that I went to, I told you I got some scrap metal. Well, one of the pieces of scrap metal is this, and what it is a scaffold plank. You can see that it's got hooks on the end of it, and it hooks over the tubing of the scaffold, and you can walk on that. So what I'm going to do with it, I think, is make a little rolling shelf to put over here by the welding table. I've always got stuff that I don't like stuff on top of the welding table. It becomes, that's why I built this grinder, angle grinder rack, so that I could set the grinders on it, and it's got a little shelf in it. And that's great for the grinders, but there's always stuff that gets accumulated on the top of the table that seems to always be in your way. So what I want to do is make a little shelf. Now what I think I'm going to do is split it in half. It's a little over 6 feet long, the usable length of the shelf from the tube or the expanded metal, from one end of the expanded metal to the other end of the expanded metal is a little over 6 feet long. What I think I'm going to do is split it, and I think this tubing cross support is in the center, so what I'll do is I'll cut it right down the center of it, make 2 shelves out of it, just to be able to have near the welding table, and also that I can roll it around, but have it near the welding table to kind of set things off on. Besides the grinders, some of the things that they get stuck onto the welding table and kind of gets in the way. You know, you put stuff up on the welding table as a welding project, and you go to move it around, turn it, and there's always junk in the way. One of the things that I want to do with it is put some a couple of storage bins, or those little plastic tray things up there to keep like MIG nozzles and stuff like that on it too. Just stuff that you know that goes with the welding project. Strikers, maybe a couple of hooks and hang helmets and glasses on it. I'm not really sure, but that's kind of what my intention was. And what I've done, what I'm going to do, instead of investing a lot of money in it, I've got this angle iron that when I tore those shelves apart, if you ever saw the video, I had some piping shelves, and what we did is tore them apart, cut them apart. That's one of them right there, the A-frame the metal is sitting in. We cut them apart, and I saved the material out of it. Now there was stuff welded to it, so I'm cutting that off, and what I'm going to do is use that for like the legs of the table that will support those things. And then what I'll do is I'll put a piece of plate, flat plate steel on the bottom of it, and get some casters to so that I can roll it around. But anyways, there is that. What I did, I tried to this is kind of what's welded to it, where I've got it clamped there. It's a piece of round bar that's stuck out. You see the pipes on that. Well, on some of them they had round bar that stuck out, and that way it separated the material in the rack. Yeah, anyways, what I was doing is cutting them off. I started out with a cutoff wheel, and it was just, they're welded, full weld on both sides of it, so it would have gone through too many cutting wheels and taken too long to do it with a cutting wheel, so I just pulled out the torch, which is laying there, and started cutting it with that. Little funny side note, I was cutting it, somebody came in and was talking to me at the same time that I was cutting it. Of course, weld splatter splattered up, and I finished the cut, took the safety glasses, the dark safety glasses off, and noticed that my sweatshirt was on fire, but just a little humorous side. I'm going to show you a little bit of cutting that's off. What I do is try and cut it off. Now it's been welded on both sides, so I couldn't cut it off with a flapper disc or a cutoff wheel, but cutoff wheel, not a flapper disc. So what I'm doing is burning it and just grinding the rest of it off. Gotta clean that tip. Why that torch was acting funny before is because I was out of oxygen. I just went out, picked up some oxygen. Turn the gas off. Hang on. Okay, let's see if we can get it right this time. I knew that torch was acting funny the last time, and I cleaned it, and I thought maybe it got some slag in the tip or something. Cool. I'll bring you back when I go to cut it. Okay, back on the welding table shelf. I got those angle irons, the stub pieces that were welded onto them, cut off and all ground down. There's 3 of them there. One of them is still over in the bandsaw, but I'll bring that over here. What I've got is that scaffold plank up onto the welding table, and I've marked it. I'm going to cut it right down the center of this tube. Now I'm going to try to do a cutoff wheel on it first. If it doesn't work, then I'll just use the torch, and that's going to get welded into the angle iron. I've got to cut off these hanger rounds where the plank went onto the scaffold tube, so I'll cut them off. Then I'll set 2 shelves up into the those are going to be the legs or the supports of the thing. So it's going to be 1 shelf on top, 1 shelf midway, probably a little more than midway down. And then I've got to get some flat stock. I've got to get 4 wheels for it. I'll shoot over to Tractor Supply and pick up some swivel wheels for it. Figure out what I'm going to need to put on the bottom of it for flat stock. I've got a piece of it down there. I think I've got some more over in my metal bin, but let me bring you back. So here's that little welding table rack tacked together. I cut the legs, cut this thing in half, the scaffold plank in half, and I've got it tacked on. It's coming out okay. What I did is I went out and bought the casters for the bottom of it, and then what I did is I had some 4-inch plate. I think it's 1/4 inch thick, so I cut 4 of them, 4 by 4, and I'll weld them on the bottom, clean it up with a sander, and then just paint it. What I'm going to do is set some of them plastic things on it for markers, temp sticks, miscellaneous things, strikers. I'll probably take that tray of files and stuff, that are tube of files and miscellaneous stuff that I've got, and kind of put that on it so that I can wheel it around, and next to the welding cart to have access, or welding table to have access to it. Like that grinder stand is becoming kind of congested, so maybe some of the stuff will go onto that. And I could probably also set you know, pieces like that I'm welding or using to fabricate, like these 4-inch square pieces, instead of having laying on the welding table kind of in the way of everything, when like I've got to spin this around to weld out the bottom now, and that stuff is probably going to be in the way. So what I'll do is I'll just use it as a kind of a stand to lay stuff on while I'm in the process of fabricating. But anyways, I'll bring you back. I'll show you a couple of welds. I'll bring you back for it. Gotta tell you, I forgot to bring you back for any of the welding, but I welded those plates onto the legs. Now I've taken it off the table and flipped it over, and I'm just going to kind of tack or spot weld the casters onto the bottom of the feet. Bottom of the leg pads. What I'm doing is just kind of eyeing the thing up with the frame rail, so that the wheel looks like it's running straight with the frame rail. Okay, there we go. So here's that cart. Got the casters on. Now, what I'm going to do is I've got to just take a grinder and grind some of the sharp edges off. Probably what I'll do is I'll end up maybe putting a couple of rods across here, maybe putting a couple of hooks on it if I wanted to just hook like a welding helmet on it, or hook the TIG torch to it. I'm sorry, or the MIG gun. But anyways, there it is. So when I say weld a couple of bars across it, let me show you what I've got on the welding table. It was shown when I built this welding table, but sometimes I hardly ever use it. I have these bars that are welded onto the end of the welding table, and what it is for is just so that you can throw the grinders on it. Since I have that grinder rack, I hardly ever use that, but it'll probably be used now because that thing is getting full. So probably what will happen is the ones that I use the least will go down here to keep space up there. So what I'll do is weld a couple of bars onto this little rack, and be able to do the same thing if I just want to set a grinder there temporarily, or it could be permanently. What I'll probably do is put the plastic bins on the top to keep them up there. And the reason why I say that is because if I put them down there, and then if I throw material up here, stuff is going to fall down through the cracks and end up in the bins. But maybe I'm overthinking this. But anyways, a couple of hooks in case I want to hook welding helmets or glasses or something to the rack. But I probably won't show that to you, so this will be the end. But anyways, here's that welding table rack. Probably at some point in time during a shop update when I get it painted and get those stuff on it and it's in use, maybe I'll give you a shot of it. But anyways, that's it.